G'day everyone, welcome to Footyology Final Siren following the grand final rematch, and a very different result in this rematch because that was a supreme second half by Geelong, who ran out very, very comfortable winners indeed against the reigning premier and their nemesis of the last couple of years. Cold comfort, I guess, when you've lost a grand final the previous season. But that was a power-packed performance by the Cats, and one which will give them a lot of confidence for subsequent meetings, perhaps against the Tigers at the pointy end of this season. We will discuss the game in detail. We'll discuss anything you'd like to talk about in the football world and maybe other stuff too a bit later on. A lot of good games this weekend, so if you want to talk about them as well, that's fine. Jump on wherever you're watching this, be it Twitter or Facebook Live, and we are here to answer your questions. And by we, I mean myself and my Footyology Final Siren co-host, Mark Fine. What'd you make of all that, Finey?
Wow. Do you find yourself, Rowan, in games of football, your mind wandering and thinking about the big picture? Because in the first half, especially after that Shy Bolton mark, I thought, these bastards, they want a piece of everything. Do they want to be the best team ever, be in the discussion for the best player ever, now be in the discussion for the best mark ever? And I thought, this is just so typical. They were sort of playing a bit with Geelong. And for me, in the first half, they were doing the things that made Geelong struggle. But the one thing Geelong wasn't doing was shrinking and shirking the issue. Now, that was the difference. I thought at half-time, Richmond were going to win, but at least I was enjoying the game. Well, of course, talk about thinking about a different football world one half later. Really, it was like, Richmond, I wonder if they're halfway through their premiership era. That's what I was thinking. I'm thinking something different now. You know what I'm thinking?
What?
The Jeremy Cameron, and I thought this at half-time, is the perfect... He's smarter than we ever gave him credit for. He worked in areas that helps other players, doesn't take their ground, but in fact takes their opponent's focus, and he covers a lot of ground. Wow, did he look great with Hawkins and Rowan.
Well, it was a fantastic troika, wasn't it? 15 goals between them, 6 to Cameron, 5 to Rowan, 4 to Hawkins. They're a potent side, and we've talked about this before. They've never struggled to score except against Richmond, and now maybe perhaps that one extra tall forward makes a difference. Of course, we do have to talk about Richmond, the absentees, and one of whom was Dylan Grimes, and I thought his absence tonight was particularly crucial. But I think also the cumulative impact of not having Prestia, Cochin and Lambert, I felt like that really took a toll as well.
Look, human Valium, Dylan Grimes?
Say it again, sorry.
Human Valium? Because the normally composed backline without Dylan Grimes looked very unrelaxed. I was shocked at Nathan Broad's a couple of times, not his decision, that his choice to go for the ball a couple of times was completely reckless and cost goals. Short was messy. Floston became messy. It's as though without Dylan Grimes, they had lost their zen.
Well, there were a number, it's as fumbly as I've seen Richmond's defence for a while, and I made a note of at least 3 goals in that third quarter that were the direct result of Richmond errors. There was a drop mark to Mansell, which allowed Rowan a goal. Vlosten dropped a mark that gave Cameron a goal. Broad, miskick from Broad, or missed a target, which gave Cameron a previous goal. So, and look, I guess, the discussion becomes to what extent was that a result of Geelong's pressure, both physical and psychological. But we're here for your questions, and they're starting to back up already. So keep sending them in. And before we get to them, we'll run through the essential details, starting with the quarter-by-quarter scores in that magnificent pseudo-1980s graphic style that we have generated here on this show. Good start by the Tigers. Bit of a role reversal, actually. The 2019 preliminary final and the grand final last year, it was the Cats that made the running. Richmond wore them down. Well, the roles were flipped tonight. So Richmond at quarter time, 4-3 to 1-3. Cats, much better second quarter. And look, not quite back on level terms at halftime, but a 9-point difference. I think that was really important in giving them the confidence to know at halftime that they were absolutely in it. And then one-way traffic in the second half, 13 goals to 2 in the second half. They kicked 12 of 13 at one stage before Richmond got a late one. And the final scores, Richmond 9-9-63 to the Cats 19-12, 126, a whopping 63-point victory. Only the second time Geelong have beaten Richmond in the last 8 meetings. Let's have a look at the individual goal kickers and the best. For the Tigers, 3 to Jake Arts, 3 to, and I'm told reliably, and people are getting a bit antsy about this, Finey, it is Shea Bolton, not Shy. So we will get that right forthwith. Singles to Lynch, Rioli and Rewalt. And for the Cats, like I said, 15 from those 3 very dangerous looking forwards. 6 to Jeremy Cameron, great game from him. 5 to Rowan in his 150th. 4 to Tom Hawkins. 2 to Isaac Smith. Singles to Higgins and Close. The best, as voted by Mark Fine, you have given Finey Cameron best on ground. Rowan, Hawkins, probably no surprises there. Tom Stewart, great defensive game from him. Cam Guthrie, terrific in midfield again. And Jack Henry in defence, also great. And for the Tigers, a few of the usual suspects missing. I don't see the name Martin there. Bolton, Nankervis, Arts, Baker, Graham and Edwards. Last quick one to you, Finey, before we get into the questions from the viewers. What do you think of Dusty Martin's game tonight?
A little bit self-important. So I found that he was sort of yelling for the ball and screaming for the ball, independent of what the team needed to be doing. He was coursing quite wide, and in the end, I think he spat it out. He had about 5 or 6 touches in the second half. Not to say that if the game was there to be won, he couldn't have lifted, but I think he put the cue in the old rack, which was interesting. Hardwick promised he was fitter after the trip to New Zealand that he'd been all year, and he's had a pretty good year up till that break. Just quickly on the numbers, I know at one stage the score was 9-9 to 15-9, because that's my favourite scoreline. It's the Siegfried from Get Smart, because it's 9-9 to 99. And that means that they kicked 4 goals free without any Richmond resistance to end the game. Very un-Richmond-like to allow themselves to be steamrolled like that at the end.
Well, Dustin Martin finished up with 21 disposals. And one of the great, and I'll go through a few stats a bit later on, but one of the great statistical discrepancies in this game was the disposal count, which Geelong won by 131 at 439 disposals to Richmond's 308. And I know the Cats are a high possession team, Richmond not so high, but that is a massive discrepancy. Leading disposal winners, well, Geelong had 6 guys who had 24 touches or more. The leading possession getter for Richmond was Jaden Short with 22. So massive difference there. All right, let's start whipping through a few questions. Mark Anderson observes much better ball movement by the Cats. And yeah, that was a recurring theme on the commentary, wasn't it? Just the speed of their ball movement tonight.
Cameron demands that. He really makes so many leads that were positive. You'd be a dang fool to kick it backwards when he's on the charge like that.
Someone's saying they saw you at Specsavers on Wednesday, Finey. Is that true?
No, that is incorrect. These are like the pair that Homer Simpson found in the toilet at Bart's school that had been dropped by Henry Kissinger. They just fell in my lap, this pair.
Now, I've started to use a pair of reading glasses or magnifiers or whatever you call them, and they'll do me for the moment. Jared Smith says, is Tom Stewart one of the more underrated decision makers in the league?
No, he's all Australian. How many times? 3, certainly twice. I don't
You
think
know,
we.
I always want to. I remember when he had his first pre-season with the Cats, and there was a nap game. I think his first one, and I tweeted at one stage, "Gee, I'm impressed with Stewart." And someone came back at me and said, "Oh, I reckon he's ordinary. He looks slow. He's not up to the level." And I've always wanted to remember who replied to that tweet so I could go back to him and go, "Yeah, yeah, yeah."
Now he's from is it St. Who's the strong team down there in Geelong?
I keep telling you, Finey, never ask a question you don't know the answer to.
Anyhow, so there is a Tom Stewart that I would have loved to have seen because he was a good footballer, but just keener to play with his mates. And do you know at one point when he was playing in the Geelong League, he weighed 100 kilos?
Well, yeah, I can relate to that. Yeah, well,
but he would have looked very different at 100 kegs.
He would have. He would have. Well, maybe a bit of the Shane Mumfords about him. We've got some silly questions tonight. I'm going to read the more serious ones. Shane Elson Walker says, has Geelong potentially got the best forward setup in the AFL right now?
They'd like a really good small forward, wouldn't they? Goal-kicking small forward.
Yeah, well, right at the moment, I mean, it changes by the week, doesn't it? But I reckon GWS's forward setup's going pretty well.
I reckon West Coast, when fully complemented, and that includes Rioli, who's not back till round 23. So next year, Oscar Allen, I think Kennedy goes around again, Darling, Liam Ryan,
yeah,
Rioli, and the very effective Cripps. That's a pretty good.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. That's number one for me, definitely. And they certainly reasserted their claims to that mantle last week with a potent performance against Fremantle. Q says Jack Henry played his best game for the club tonight. Your thoughts?
Well, I'm glad that I put him in the best. I loved his game. Riewoldt is not. It's not like Riewoldt has a night off. He's a real hard-working Jack Riewoldt. So to deny him the ball, to get the ball yourself, and also to deny his work off the ball, because Riewoldt just wasn't able to bring it to ground or anything. So it was a great game by Jack Henry.
Was good. Just on that subject, Leroy Jones says WTF, and we all know what that stands for. Henderson needs to be in the Cats' best.
Yeah, I could have easily put Henderson in, but I can only put 6 in. Who would you have left out?
Yeah, I had no quibbles. Well, I would have probably gone 7 best. There are different conventions about naming best. It's just, I don't know how that one evolved, but it's a bit of an old...
Like league convention?
Well, it's a bit of an old newspaper thing. You name 6 players from either side, but I don't even know how it started. And I think we all just do it because that's what we came in and saw other people doing. So, yeah, you could have had Henderson.
The Little League, when they have a good win, team effort.
Team effort. No, it's usually when they lose by about 20 goals, isn't it? Trav Dutka says, no captain, no engine in Prestia, no reliability in Lambert, no general in Grimes hurt. That can't be understated. And if the Cats couldn't win after the 2020 grand final choke, Sammy and Frankie should give it away. We learnt nothing about either team tonight.
Well, hang on. Last week they had a great win against the Doggies. No Martin, no Lambert. Obviously.
No Vlosten last week.
No, that's correct. So they are capable of great things. And we were extolling their virtues as to how good they were, not who, but where and how. So we can't just jump off that bandwagon in a week.
Yeah, come on, Trav. You haven't lost too many games over the last few years. You've got to be a little bit gracious when they do drop one.
Gracious tonight.
I suppose one thing that will come up for discussion is the fact that the Tigers have now lost, I think, 3 of their past 4 at the MCG. That's to Sydney, Melbourne, and now the Cats. I don't see anything of significance in that. I don't think they've lost those games because they've been at the MCG. I thought tonight, they were down across the board, I reckon, after quarter time, probably. So I don't think it's not a loss you look at and you think, gee, they've got gaping structural holes here, or here. Or if they did, and this is getting back to what Trav said, I suppose. I thought Grimes' absence was really noticeable. And when I went through the absentees, I thought, Prestia, Lambert, Cochin, they're pretty central to that midfield group. And
all right, what about throwing Edwards? Because he left the game injured.
Yeah, he did.
That's bad.
But those three I mentioned, I mean, they're in that starting midfield setup, really, if Dusty's not there. So, of course, that's going to make a difference.
Just on Richmond, we had that discussion last week that Richmond at 4 from 7 games was not in unusual territory, that they had similar starts in 2019, 2018 and 2020.
Well, 2019, they were only 7-6 after 13 games.
Yeah, so it's a good conversation to have and easy to have when they had that win last week to describe how great they've been in shaking that and timing their run for the finals. Now it becomes a more a deeper examination at 4 out of 8 with injuries. We know that they've won premierships from this position. How do you feel tonight? Are you as comfortable as you were last week?
Yep, I'm still premiers for mine.
Okay.
They've done it before. Yep. I mean, they were close to 50-50 more than halfway through the season in 2019, and the upshot of that was the most dominant of the 3 premiership wins. So I'm not jumping. I'll tell you right now, no matter what happens, unless they drop their next 4, say, I am not getting off them as my premiership tip until it is patently obvious they are in decline. And I think, don't forget, in fact, I thought back at one stage, the one win that Geelong had against Richmond until tonight in that string of 7 games was by 67 points or something.
Yeah.
I think back to that game against St Kilda. I can't hear.
Sorry, was that 2019?
That was 2019. I think back to the game against St Kilda in 2017 at Etihad, at Marvel, when they were smashed. They're not beyond putting in an absolute stinker. And I think perhaps, you'd hope that tonight was this year's version of that. The answer obviously will be in the response next week.
Does a premiership player or 2 pay the price? I would have thought Castagna needs to pull something out pretty quickly.
He was pretty invisible, I thought. I thought Collier Dawkins, he's had, 2 games now.
Yeah.
If one of those 3 top liners comes back, he's an obvious casualty. Mansell is an obvious casualty.
He was an obvious casualty the minute Duncan bumped him.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because the tackle count tonight was Geelong won by 13, despite the fact they had so much more of the footy. So I thought that was significant. And I was having a look at who their leading tacklers were. Mitch Duncan led the tackle count for the Cats with 7. He's I think he's undersold as a tough midfielder.
So how do you think he and Selwood are placed with their bumps?
Good question, which someone else here asked, and I just want to give that person credit. Scott Carr, how many weeks Selwood? It was an interesting one, wasn't it? I saw Luke Hodge sort of flew to his defence, as you'd expect, and I think Wayne Carey did subsequent to that. And I've got some sympathy for what Carey said, which was, what else was he supposed to do? I mean, he got to the ball first, but if they are consistent about this, doesn't matter what you do, if you hit someone in the head, you pay the price, he has to go.
Yeah, you can't go.
No, sorry. It doesn't have to go. It's dependent upon the medical report. In fact, I'm just trying. Who was the player he hit?
Baker, I think.
Okay, well, he played on, didn't he? Which I guess will, count towards a non-suspension. But, if they're going to be firm and consistent about this thing, he can't hit a guy in the head, he's in trouble. However, see, I can't make up my mind here, because I think if they're going to be consistent with that, he probably needs to go. However, he got there first. He bent down and picked up the ball. So what I do agree with Wayne Carey. What else can you do? The key for me is who got there first. He got there first because he picked up the ball.
Well, I can tell you, I think by the rules, he cannot be rubbed out. It's actually impossible because the rule states that you're not, if you choose to bump, then it's your responsibility unless your action was the action where there was no other option. So the ball's there, you go down to get it. What option did he have? To not get it or to bend over like he's picking daffodils? He'll get injured doing that. He'll be the one getting injured. He actually had no other option than to go for the ball like that. Whereas Mitch Duncan, I think, is in trouble for his bump on Mansell.
Well, hang on. Just stay on the Selwood one. So if we agree that a key is who got there first, then what should Baker have done when he, in that split second, and that's another key, where he realised, I'm not going to get there first? Does he then have to jump out of the way?
He needs to get into a time machine and go back to the 70s and 80s when I certainly started playing football and you did, and many. You didn't have to be a champion. And the first time I got cleaned up, my coach or one of the blokes on the boundary said, you got to learn to protect yourself, mate. And it was part of playing football. You needed to know how to use your body, and you don't just go in head first to a contest like that. Selwood used his rump, and you need to use the fleshy part of your body in making the same attack on the ball. That's what he needed to do. He needed to brace himself maybe with his shoulder and head in like that, not just put his head through the mincer. I mean, really.
There's a fundamental problem with this, and I'm not, when I say it's a fundamental problem, I don't know what the solution is because, protecting the head and the fear of concussion is a noble pursuit. But unfortunately, it doesn't really, that sort of thing that you cannot hit a guy on the head, it doesn't tally with how our game is played. If you've got a ball on the ground, two guys coming from opposite sides and they both arrive at about the same time, you have to bend over to pick it up. It's sort of inevitable. I don't know how you reconcile the two things.
Rowan, there's only one person who can protect your head in football, not the umpire, not the rules makers, and certainly not your opponent. You're responsible for it. Look, what would be clearly the greatest safety innovation in the history of cricket?
The helmet.
Yeah, well, it unfortunately played a major role in the passing of Phil Hughes. And Ian Chappell said it, and I concur at the time, modern batsmen stand up and hook as though they are completely immune or not likely to suffer any effects from getting struck in the head. You had to play inside the line of a ball when hooking, but nobody seems to be taught that. So in making the game safer, do we make it less safe as players think that, oh, well, the rules protect me, I'm just going to go in head first? Because that's not play football.
It's a real conundrum. So let's talk quickly about the Duncan one. So did he get Baker in that incident as well? I think he did, didn't he?
No, Mansell.
Other way around. So
Selwood got Mansell.
And Duncan got Baker. That's right.
Sorry.
And I remember noticing with the Duncan Baker one that Baker looked, his eyes were spinning for a quick second after that contact, and he went to the bench.
Yes.
So what do you think is going to happen with that one?
Well, that seems to be, for me, a more clear-cut case of, you can do that, but if you make contact to somebody's head, then you will be carefully looked at by the MRO, depending on now medical advice on Baker. So that depends on how Baker was. Luckily, he finished the game and maybe it will be deemed as below the impact required for a suspension.
Q makes the point, Edwards' injury will be interesting to see. They'll be in trouble if he's out. Tend to agree. Andrew Gardner, Footyology's own Andrew Gardner. Good to see you watching. Can we get a Man from Uncle reference while you're at it, Finey? I never watched The Man from Uncle.
What was his name? Kerry Arkin or something? Kerry Arkin. Not one of my favourite shows. Are you talking about the 9999 reference? I'll say this much, that I received, I tweeted something last night about rugby league, and one of the tweets I received back was something about somebody being a blithering fool. And then I started looking through tweets, and Dr. Zachary Smith from Lost in Space has had a strong effect on society because people tend to insult like him. You dithering dog dunderhead and whatever. It's quite amazing what people get up to on Twitter.
All right, I've got some ground to make up here, so let's just have some very quick reactions. Paul says, evening, guys. Happy Cats fan here. Wrapped with Brad Close. Genuine footballer, very clean. Yeah, I thought he was good tonight. It was a good goal he kicked in the third quarter. He also did well on the pressure front too. He had 5 tackles along with Zach Guthrie and Atkins. Now, just regarding the tackles, one of the stats that stood out was the tackles inside 50, which was 18 to the Cats and just 4 to Richmond. So, Richmond's always been a very good tackling side. So their front end or front half pressure, if you like, I think very much down on its usual numbers tonight, but Geelong's particularly good. The other inside 50 stat, which stood out like the proverbials, was marks inside 50. Tigers took only 6. Geelong took 20. 20 marks inside 50.
So there was, look, I don't like the injury sub. I understand it for concussion, but I thought they got a lift when Narkle came on for Simpson. That's not the idea, is it? And kick of the night, how beautiful was that kick under pressure by Higgins to Gary Rowan in the second quarter? God, that was a good kick.
Yeah, well, I thought the other bloke that did a couple of superb passes was the best big man field kick I've ever seen, Tom Hawkins.
Oh, yeah, beautiful.
He is a beautiful kick of the footy.
And by the way, the cat's out of the bag. And I've said this before. I love when people have a discussion, who's the best shot at goal? Oh, blah, blah, is blah, blah. I've said it for 5 years, and there is no doubt that Gary Rowan is the best kick at goal in the AFL. He is a dead-eye dickaroo.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that one. Q points out a Super Footy article this week said Richmond have the easiest run home. They'll still finish top 4. I did say that. They, I think it was Champion Data rated the draws of everyone from easiest to hardest.
Yeah, but that changes automatically every week when the results come in. It's silly.
Oh, well, you can...
Well, 3 weeks ago, playing Gold Coast was a bit of a gimme. I'm telling you, they are no gimme. These things change rapidly. And also, where are the games going to be played?
Didn't you justify last week saying St Kilda wouldn't make the 8 on the basis of their draw?
Oh, hey, St Kilda have been annihilated by Essendon. Now, come on.
Yeah, but that was 3 weeks ago.
I'm saying, really, it's not the draw that's going to beat them. They're not quite good enough.
All right. Austin Phillips says, I thought the game changed after the Selwood attack on the ball with Mansell. From that moment on, the Cats game went to another level. He was hard as a cat's head tonight, Joel Selwood.
Did you feel in that third quarter, Geelong with those couple of bumps of Duncan and Selwood, and just the way they were playing, were saying, look, we know it's a home and away game, but we are not losing to Richmond again. That just cannot possibly be allowed to happen. And we are willing to go unsociable and, pay a bit of a price, but we are taking this mob out. They saw the sort of whites of their eyes. They saw an opportunity for the kill, and by goodness, they were impressive when they did.
It's as aggressive a Geelong performance as I've seen for a long time.
Yeah, I think that's a good word that is not always used with Geelong. Certainly with that slower style of play, aggression is not part of the makeup. I think tonight they would be delighted with what they were able to achieve by being aggressive.
Well, I'm just going to read through a few reactions here to our discussion about the bumps. So we won't react to these. I'll just read some responses. So Ryan says, Duncan more likely to get a week than Selwood, might just be under the threshold. Jake Grover says, Duncan didn't get the head though. Well, Yeah, I haven't seen it again, but if he didn't get the head, why were Baker's eyes spinning around?
And remember, Baker hits his head on the ground as a result of
Oh, okay, all right. Well, that's possible.
That's still the responsibility of the bumper.
Matthew Price says Mansell's head hit Selwood's lower back. I'm not sure how Selwood was supposed to prevent that. Hard to hold him responsible.
Correct.
Adam Rose says if Fritsch gets off, so does Duncan. Well, Fritsch didn't get off, did he? He got a week, didn't he?
Fritsch got 1 week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
got more.
I was overturned.
It was overturned.
Should know that, shouldn't we? I can't keep. Oh, look, I'm having enough trouble working out when the teams are coming out these days.
Fritsch got overturned. Woo, Melbourne's in a purple patch.
All right, let's keep going. Dino De Rosa.
Life's good. It's always the Fritsch that get, the poor people get nothing. Only the Fritsch.
No, that wasn't very good.
I thought you'd like it.
Keep trying. Dino De Rosa says a very low energy contest for a grand final replay.
Wrong. Rematch.
Rematch. I'll tell you what was low energy. Oh no, here we go again.
Commentary.
I've still only heard it the first time, but if there was ever a time in a call I wanted to hear the callers go crazy bonkers, it was when Bolton took that mark. Yeah. What, did they miss it or something? It was like, I don't know. Do any of our viewers see the Bolton mark and think, why haven't they got more excited about that? I couldn't.
It was incredible. Here's a man, Brian Taylor, who can obsess over a player turning his back after taking a mark and not looking for teammates. He obsesses on it. But that mark seemed to wash over him.
It was weird. Like, was he looking down at his notes or something and he missed it? It was just bizarre. And unfortunately, we're going to see it replayed over and over and over. I wonder if they'll redub the commentary like they did with that mark Brett Allison took at the MCG when they got Drew Morfitt to do a voiceover subsequently, because it didn't do it justice at all, particularly when the ground level replay of it did do it justice. And if you haven't seen it, Michael Wilson, probably Australia's best football photographer, captured the moment perfectly. And Bolton, his feet are above the head of, who was it he took it over? Was it Blitzarves or anyway, whoever he took it over, there's separation between the Geelong guy's head and Bolton's feet. And yet the call was, that's a good mark. It was just weird.
The height he attained was reminiscent of Michael Mitchell, that mark he took in WA.
Yeah.
And a famous photograph of John Coleman marking over that poor North Melbourne fullback that he kept befuddling so often in his career.
Yeah.
One good thing they did bring up was the number 29 being the goal square, because Smith and Moorcroft and now Bolton have all worn the number.
I think I'd still have Gary Moorcroft ahead of Bolton, and I'd have probably Smith number one. I think Sean Smith, given the crowd of players that was in that goal square, the lack of space he had to run and jump.
Yeah. He seemed to straight up, didn't he?
Yeah. That, and one of two screamers taken on the using Gary Lyon as a foot ladder. Of course, Jeff Farmer taking the other one 3 years later in 1998. The Smith one was 1995. Who's
the other famous step ladder in football?
Well, Graham Jenkin. Jezen. You mean multiple? Ian Payton.
Kelvin Moore.
Oh, Kelvin Moore. Sorry, that's what I was thinking of. Phil Baker in the grand final and Michael Roach in 1979. Yeah. All right. Jake Grover says, Richmond tackles seemed extremely easy for the Cats to break tonight. Wish for a broken tackle stat. Yeah, it's a good call. That is a good call.
Mm-hmm. Good call.
Look, I thought early on they were nailing. In fact, that's the other remarkable thing. I actually tweeted early on, and now I'm getting a stream of, that aged well. Well, no, it obviously didn't. But I thought in the first 10 minutes or 15 minutes, I thought Geelong's pressure was terrible. Richmond players had so much space early on. Lynch kicked that first goal on a heap of space. I actually wrote down notes. I said, Lynch, heaps of space. Rioli had space when he did that thread of that snap from the forward pocket. But they're sort of out of nowhere, Geelong's intensity just went through the roof. So credit to them for that. Okay, Simon Morris says, Rowan, as in Gary Rowan and Zach Merritt, same milestone game, same round from the same hometown of Cobden. Must be the first. Could be.
I remember when they both got picked up from Cobden and Cunnington came from up the road.
Whereabouts? I'm going to have to look now. Hang on. So who else? Buddha Hocking was from Cobden, wasn't he? Or was he?
It's sort of I'll tell you that from Terang, maybe Cunnington. It's that.
No, Cunnington. Well, Cunnington's listed as Cobden.
Yeah. I think he might have. It's around Terang, Cobden. It's that dairy farmers area, and they were all highly rated. They've had great careers. You can't knock any of those three. They're great players.
No, I don't know what the population of Cobden is, but they'd be pretty justifiably proud. All right, let's keep going because we've had a sudden spurt of comments. Ben McAuliffe says, as a team, Richmond probably rely on hunger and intensity more than most multiple premiership teams. Fair call. They've never had the supremacy in pure talent that some of the top sides of the past have had, and the opposition have had 4 years to scrutinise their style of play. Is the hunger still there and can it be regained? If so, they can still come home strongly as they have done over the past 2 years. If not, could be a tough scrap just to make the 8, let alone seriously challenge for another flag. Time will tell. Here's hoping. All right, we'll both have a crack at that, Finey. My immediate response to that, though, Ben, is I think they do have the talent. I think their talent is, however stupid this sounds, is still sold short. And a guy like Bolton, to me, is a perfect example. He is a gifted player. He is bordering on elite status in the AFL for mine. I had a look. I mean, we talked about how improved he was last year. He came fourth in their best and fairest in a premiership year. But they've got a whole raft of players who are particularly good players who don't get as much kudos as their equivalents at other sides do because of Martin, because of Rewalt, because of Lynch, because of Cochin. What do you think?
Well, look, take 3 top midfielders out of any team and see how they go. In fact, isn't that what's happened to Collingwood with their off-season shenanigans and then Adams getting injured?
Yeah,
pretty to keep the show going. You have to understand that Richmond is very much a team, as we've explained before, and Rowan has spoken to Lambert about the hard running and where they run to. So you've got a guy like Lambert not there. Prestia is a coalface general for them. And Cochrane was central to their win last week as he takes that role. Now, Dustin Martin's a great player, but he's not particularly known for running the other way defensively. That's a very hard job to fill. And Collier Dawkins showed that he's a kid. You can't just keep producing champions in their second or third game. That's not going to happen. The Marlon Pickett phenomenon was a one-off, people. So in the end, they've run short in the guts. And we know that in the modern game, that's going to kill you.
Yeah. Just to add to the discussion about Cobden, so I said Buddha Hocking. Buddha Hocking was from Cobram.
Yeah.
So that's courtesy of Joel Mirandez. So thanks, Joel. That's my mistake. Johnny Barnes is the other product of Cobden.
Cobden, okay.
That people are mentioning. Robert Marshall says Luke Darcy. Oh, sorry. There's a comment. Luke Darcy's description on Triple M did the mark justice, and that comment's been sent in from L. Darcy, funnily enough. No, it's Robert Marshall. A bit of a pump up for the Duke there. All right, I might have a listen to that. Ryan says Isaac Smith was fantastic. Still got plenty of good footy left in him. Yeah, I thought he was important tonight.
Yeah, it's exactly the sort of game that he will take a lead role in. Not saying that he's a front runner, not at all. A game where they are moving the ball quicker and using the expanses of the MCG in one-on-ones and testing people aerobically. Because by slowing the game down, it takes him out of the contest, doesn't it? You know, he'll get some ball, but that's not what he's there for, to be part of a daisy chain. He's there to run and test his opponent. He was great.
Yeah. Sorry, I now need to correct the correction, which is from Freddie Ferret. Thanks a lot, Freddie. Freddie says, sorry, Barnesy was the same as Buddha. So Barnesy was also from Cobram, not Cobden. So Cobram's north, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Cobden's definitely Western Districts.
Is Cobram near the Murray River? Should know this.
Yeah, I think...
Damon, can you do a quick Google Maps, please?
Up there.
Freddie Ferret again says Dustin looked disinterested. Well, I don't know whether to believe you, Freddie. You got your last factor wrong.
He did seem to be in his own world and turned off very early. But then again, Ash Barty does that. She just completely doesn't play certain sets of tennis and always wins.
Craig Gislingham, when the game was on the line, Tigers didn't have Cochin to change it up. I think that's a good point, because I thought last week against the Bulldogs, Cochin had 9 disposals in the third quarter. I thought he was the man that really turned it around for them.
Mm-hmm.
Paul says Walsh, Merritt and Rowan doing our little country town proud.
Conniver.
No, he's talking about Cobden.
Walsh, Merritt. Oh, I was thinking of Roger Merritt.
No. Sam Walsh, Zach Merritt and Gary Rowan. And he says, by the way, Sam Walsh's little brother goes well as well. See, I didn't realise Sam Walsh was from Cobden. Geez, they are doing well. And the population, by the way, according to Simon Morris, is only 1,500 people.
Wow. I mean, Conniver was good back in the day, wasn't it?
Well, I can name 2, Roger Merritt and Glenn Hawker. Have you got any others? Wayne Bettison. Short-lived flame on the Essendon horizon.
He had a good day once.
Say it again.
He played well at the SCG once, Bettison. Well,
that was his first game. He took a hanger in the on the goal line. That was his only season. He came and went in 1983. Hey, by the way, sorry, this is indulgent, but Finey, you won't have seen this. I dug up yesterday. I went down the YouTube rabbit hole.
Yep.
And I found a video from an Essendon Carlton game at Windy Hill on Queen's birthday, 1982. And Gary Folds has taken a free kick from inside the centre square, probably 65 out, sent through a torpedo for a goal, post high. Incredible kick. Crowd has gone absolutely mad. Cameras pan down to the crowd sitting in front of where the commentary team was. There's 3 adolescent boys jumping up in their duffel coats, going berserk. One of them punching the air with delight. Who do you think that was, Finey?
Mark Robinson?
It was yours truly. 17 with a very healthy head of hair and
great.
A devilish glint in my eye.
You would have been full of testosterone and beer.
What's changed?
What?
Anyway, if you want to see it, I actually ended up tweeting the video. So if you want to check it out, it's on my timeline.
Great.
Cobram is on the southern banks of the Murray. So we got that right at least.
Yeah. Cobram Baruga, isn't it?
Darren Prashino makes a very good point. Alistair Clarkson, also from Conniver. So actually, that begs the question, how did Alistair Clarkson end up at North Melbourne and not Essendon?
Don't know.
It's interesting.
Not out. But, I mean, from that area, obviously, Dimbula, Tim Watson.
Yep.
I mean, the Wimmera was your area. Was Wayne Primer from around there?
Wayne Primer, I think, was Dimbula. Max Crow was Underbull.
Underbull, correct. Then the Ungari boys, of course, were Sydney recruits. South Melbourne through their Wagga connection. But Jason McCartney's from Nil, which is not a million miles from there.
Can I tell you a Jason McCartney story? So in 1990,
Yep.
Jason was touted as the number one or likely number one draft pick. And I was on the Sunday Age, and we got in touch with him, at least a month out from the draft, and we did. And back in these days, it was like this was sort of a novel thing to do. We did a diary with him in the lead up to the draft. So I would ring him a couple of times a week, every week in the lead up, and got to know him reasonably well. And I was talking to his parents and whatever, and he was a mad Essendon supporter.
Yep.
Growing up in Nil, part of the region, part of the zone.
Was Merv around there?
Merv Nagel was Dimbula as well, I think.
Yep.
Anyway, so draft day comes about, and I think I just watched it at home. Anyway, the phone rings 5 minutes after the draft, and I pick it up, and it's Jason McCartney's mum sobbing, absolutely sobbing.
Yep.
Because he had been drafted by Collingwood. She was devastated. Not at him going into state, but by the fact he'd been drafted by the mortal enemy. All right. So we're sort of, the comments have dried up, believe it or not. We've caught up. But while you send through some more, open slather now, ask what you like. Just want to read out a couple more stats, which I thought were pretty important. The inside 50 count tonight, 55 to 43 Geelong's way. So 43 would be as low inside 50s, I reckon, as the Tigers had had for a fair while. Clearances, the Cats won by 9. Contested ball, they won by 33. That is a pretty big margin against the Tigers. Uncontested ball was a smashing. In fact, it was 90. Geelong had 90 more uncontested balls, so they won on the outside very clearly. 10 more tackles. I said marks inside 50, 20, which is a heap, to 6. And those tackles inside 50, 18 to 4. In fact, the only two key statistical areas Richmond won on the night were the hit-outs, 39-25. You did have Toby Nankervis in your best. And this is interesting, given that the Cats won the clearances reasonably decisively, but they won the clearance count 39-30, but Richmond won the centre bounce clearances 18-12. So Geelong obviously won the bulk of the, what they call them, stoppage clearances around the ground. All right. Darren Cunningham says, BT's comments on intercept marking were embarrassing tonight. Hodge made him look silly. I reckon he was taking the piss, wasn't he? Surely. He knows what an intercept mark is. Why would you do that?
Did you like the piece of commentary? I can't remember who was having a shot of goal. I think it was from Geelong. Distance, no problem, just a question of accuracy. And it was right, it was dead centre, and it landed 2 metres short.
I did notice that. The one that annoyed me particularly, and I tweeted about, was in Geelong's supreme third quarter, after the 6th goal in a row, he said, they've kicked 7 in a row. No, they hadn't. They kicked 6 in a row. Like, it's just getting that basic information wrong. The other one that really annoyed me, it's just come back to me now, was halfway through that run of 7 goals in the end in the third quarter, the goal Gary Rowan kicked after the drop mark by Mansell. Now, the drop mark was pivotal in causing the goal. They didn't call it at the time. There were 3 replays of it, and not once in any of the replays did they call who dropped the mark. And I wanted to know who it was. The camera didn't show it clearly. Yep. So I tweeted, can someone tell me who dropped that mark? I mean, it's just basic. You cannot get basic information wrong. And that's what, forget this. Well, no, I won't forget it. But apart from the self-indulgence, apart from underselling one of the highlights of the season, overselling a bloke turning his back on play or something, get your basic facts right. It's not that hard, is it?
Yeah, I could not agree more, Graham.
Very good. Very good. You should call me Ralph or something. All right. Rhombus Isotope wants to know, will you eat an Andrews burger live on cam? I'm quite happy to if someone brings me one.
You never live on camera.
Oh, I will. Absolutely. If it's an Andrews burger, no question.
Okay.
Don't know how we're going to make that happen, given that I'm in East Melbourne and they're in Albert Park. But if anyone can facilitate that, I'm quite happy to come to the party. Tim Dole says, is the run-on a byproduct of the new rules? Seems like teams drop off more in 2021. I don't think it's a product of the rules particularly. I mean, a couple of years ago, we would have said it's a product of the 666. You notice how no one now talks about 666 like it's important at all?
Yeah, except umpires warning. Why would you give a warning?
I wrote about that last week. We're talking about games being too long. There's so much dead time that can be cut out of games, one of which is the stupid warning. We're in the third year of the 666 rule. If sides can't get it right, bloody free kick straight away. Don't you think?
How about last week? I can't remember what game. There was, at the end of the game, this game is completely decided. And a arc replay. I remember watching the arc replay thinking, whoever kicked that goal just kicked his 100th of the year. They showed it over and over and over, and the game was over. It was like, who cares?
Yeah, but you can't invest any less time in a score review decision just because the game's over.
5 times, just make your decision. It was in the Collingwood Gold Coast game. It was definitely in the Collingwood Gold Coast game. I think it might have been the one that was it touched or not touched? And it actually went through every Collingwood player, went through like 4 defenders in a pack, and it was a goal. But, just pay it, whatever. Gold Coast were home. Hey, did you see by the way?
Say that again.
Did you see the NRL last night?
No.
50-0 they won by. Melbourne Storm.
Really? Against who?
Roosters. It was third against...
Roosters? I thought they were good. Are they no good anymore?
Sorry, Rabbitohs. It was third versus fourth or third versus fifth.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's a shellacking.
Penrith won 48-0.
Okay. No, I didn't see it last night because I was watching... I watched an episode of The Sopranos, but I also watched on iView a great documentary about Devo.
I went and saw
one of my I've seen him. One of my favourite bands, but it was different doco actually. It wasn't really about it was sort of about the music, but it was more about their concept of de-evolution, how they came together. They were all 2 of them were students at Kent State University and were there when the 4 demonstrators were killed, shot by the National Guard, if you've never heard about this, 1970. And that was pivotal in them sort of putting the band together. So it was quite political. And it was all about how all this stuff they were talking about 40, 30 years ago has come to pass. Anyway, very interesting. It's on iView if you're interested. All right, let's keep going. Rhombus Isotope says, Viasat Russian commentary is the way to go. Don't get that at all.
Now, you don't follow the races, but there is a late night. They have racing from right around the world. And there is a guy developing a cult following here in Australia. He calls the German races. He's a German who calls it English.
Oh, yeah.
And he's great. But his turns of phrase are so funny. The leading horse, Meine Kleine, is racing very well. I would say at the moment, I estimate him to be a near certainty. And then they turn for him and it gets beaten. It gets headed. And he goes, my previous prognostication is now kaput. The race was indeed. He's great. He's so worth listening to.
All right. Well, next time I'm tuning in for the 4th leg of the quaddie from Berlin, I'll make sure I go for that commentary. That's funny. You don't sort of associate horse racing with certain countries, and Germany's probably one of them. Do they have horse racing in every country?
Yeah, I mean, Germany's provided a winner of the Melbourne Cup.
Has it?
Yeah, Protectionist or whatever it was called was German.
Okay.
There's many good horses from Germany. I've been to the races in Germany. I went in Dusseldorf to the race. Listen to this. So they had a steeplechase the first race, but obviously not that keen on public interest. Once the horses left the straight, they went into some paddock. You couldn't see most of the race. And there were 4 horses in the race. And when they returned from the paddock, 3 horses remained. And I have, to this day, I don't know what happened to the horse I backed. Was it kidnapped? Did it go home? And the jockey were never seen again.
Are German horses sort of boringly efficient?
No, they're big. They're known as being good stayers. They're not sprinters. They're stayers.
Sorry, you can't use that stereotype anymore because Germany went from being the traditionally boringly efficient soccer team to the most entertaining team in the world when they last won the World Cup. In fact, I remember watching with my son and West Germany playing Argentina, and we both wanted Germany playing Argentina, and we both wanted Germany to win because they were the entertaining sort of attacking team, and Argentina was the more sort of, dour.
Brazil.
Oh, Brazil are a lot stodgier than they used to be.
Well, Germany, they kicked 7 against them, and they themselves said, we're going to stop kicking because it was in Brazil. They wanted to stop embarrassing them.
Yeah.
But I made a point of going to racing, or is racing in every country. And when I travelled around Europe and around North Africa and Asia, I love going to racetracks. And boy, did I see some strange things. I went to greyhound tracks in Spain that were pretty sad. I got a race book from Vietnam where the top weight, so here, the heaviest jockeys weigh about 60 kilos. It's between 55 and 60. The top weight in Vietnamese racing was 36 kilos. That was the heaviest jockey.
36 kilos.
36 kilos.
Oh, that's ridiculous. How old was the jockey? 5 or something?
No, just little Vietnamese jockeys, and the horse. I went to racing in Turkey.
Right.
You should see the names of the horses in Turkey.
Okay. All right, come on. Now, just let me get through a few more comments and we'll go back to your races. All right. So, shout out to Peter Wright. He says, I in answer to the question, yes, they do race everywhere. I live in Lima, Peru. So we've got an audience in Lima, Finey. So
that is unbelievable. You know how I love cooking? So yes. I watched Peruvian cooking last night, and today I went and bought all the ingredients for and made a magnificent dish called a torradito. So I wonder whether our listener is familiar with torradito. It is brilliant.
Well, he can answer, Peter Wright. So you get back to us on that, Peter. He says, good, solid racing in Lima. Best to speak Spanish, though. Yep. Al J. Meyer wants to know who wins a sausage eating competition between Hutchie and Robbo. No, we're not doing fat jokes, AJ. I'm on very, very shaky ground on that subject. Miroslav Klose is a legend, says Rhombus Isotope.
Great German footballer.
I was more a Beckenbauer and I'll tell you who I always liked, actually.
Who's better, Miroslav Klose or the Klose for Geelong?
I don't know. They're too close to call.
Good.
I was very much a Karl-Heinz Rummenigge man. And then around the same era, Horst Hrubesch, and then Lothar Matthäus.
The hammer. He was great, Lothar Matthäus, the big hammer, the midfielder with the boot of lead.
Well, he was the captain when they won the World Cup in 1990, 1-0 against Argentina in the final with a penalty by Andre Bremer, I think 6 minutes from time, with Diego Maradona sent off in the last couple of minutes.
Do you remember when we were young striplings, there wasn't a lot of international soccer on, one maybe match of the day of Star Soccer once a week. Yeah. But on Saturday mornings, there was German soccer.
On Channel O. I used to watch it every week.
And I used to I had a player that I adored, little Alan Simonson.
Oh, yeah, I remember him, yeah. And who else? Bertie Vokes.
Yeah.
Beckenbauer was playing then, or he might have gone to the US around then. But I remember the big deal when Kevin Keegan went to Hamburg from Liverpool.
Do you remember the great goalkeeper, Sepp Meyer?
I do. He was Germany's keeper.
Fantastic keeper.
Paul Breitner, left back with the curly sort of afro type hair.
Who did you...
I'll tell you the other great guy they had, a little midfielder, Pierre Litbarski.
He was a bit later, wasn't he, Lipinski?
No, 82. I reckon he played in the 82 World Cup.
I was a big fan of Dutch soccer at that stage. Gee, they had a great team, the Dutch. Remember, obviously Johan Cruyff.
Yep. Who else was in that team? Johnny Rep.
Yeah.
Johan Neeskens.
Neeskens and Cruyff were the great two, weren't they? And a bit later, Van Bommelen.
Yeah. Well, there are other great eras, sort of late 80s, early 90s, when you had Marco van Basten, Frank Rijkaard, and Ruud Gullit.
And the French had Platini.
Great era. The 1982 World Cup is my favourite World Cup. That was just sensational. And 86 was pretty good too.
Do you remember Roger Miller?
French. No, Cameroon.
Yeah, 40 years old.
Yeah. He was the one that did the dance at the corner flag when he scored.
Yep. Yes.
Okay, Peter Wright's got back to us. I'm familiar with the dish you mentioned. It's not that popular compared to the guinea pig. Yep, they love the little furry ones. No joke.
No, their favourite meats are koi, C-U-Y, which is guinea pig, and llama.
Well, I am, believe it or not, familiar with this because my mother used to go to South America a lot. My mother used to take Australian tour groups to South America for like a month at a time, and she'd do that 3 or 4 months a year. Yeah. And she'd always come back and regale us with tales about having eaten guinea pig and stuff like that. It's a weird. She ate.
Well, she wasn't. Yeah. I'm saying she ate it. She wasn't a guinea pig. She wasn't the person who tried it making her the guinea pig.
No, I think it was pretty universal.
Yeah. I've seen TV. They've got guinea pig restaurants with out the back. They've got hutches full of guinea pigs ready to be eaten.
All right. A lot of soccer messages coming through now. Blaine Treadgold, announcer at 91.3 Sport FM in Perth.
Yep.
And bit of news on that front, actually, which I won't go with yet, but a bit of an alliance forming between Footyology and Sport FM. So thanks for joining us, Blaine. But Blaine points out that Pierre Lipinski coached Sydney FC. I didn't know that. I wonder when that was. Tell us when that was, Blaine, if you have a look. Good call. Ruud Gullit, a lot of love for Ruud Gullit. We probably should talk some more. No, I'll tell you what we should do. We should do our tips. Tim Dole says, who do the Saints have to contain Cameron, Rowan and Hawkins next week, Finey? Is it Howard, Wilkie and Jake?
No, it'll be Howard, Wilkie and not Jake. I would suggest they might go with who did they bring in last week? It's half back.
What about what's happened to Josh Battle?
He plays every week, but he just doesn't do anything. He's a minister with our portfolio. He just bobs up here and there.
But he did play defend.
Yeah, he played back at centre last week, so they might use him. They might, Jake Carlisle can play, but he's not well loved by the team, and he just,
Oh, that's a controversial comment. Jake Carlisle not loved by his teammates.
No.
Why is that? How do you know that?
It's just a fact.
No, you can't say that. Yeah, I want some evidence of why his teammates don't like him, Finey. You can't just make a sweeping statement.
Look, I don't think it was accepted, but I don't think it was loved that after winning the first final, he hopped a plane and came back to Melbourne, even for the birth of a baby. I mean,
really?
Absolutely. The club playing their first final in a decade. They'd been separated. Everybody there was suffering. Everybody was away from loved ones. And it was a big loss. We could not afford to not have a big man against Rewalt and Lynch, and he was central to that equation and playing decent footy. It was not universally accepted. I know that we live in an age when we just have to accept everything and how people, people's care and feelings and how whether they're comfortable with certain things. But I don't think the team loved that moment.
Well, I think, okay, fair enough. But I think the team on that basis can get stuffed. Like it's the birth of his child.
Really?
No one has the right to deny. No, hang on. No one has the right to deny a parent being present at the birth of their own child.
Okay, all right. But you don't have to love it.
No, but okay, that's interesting. I hadn't heard that before. All
I'm
right.
not saying fact. I'm just saying he's not, they tried to shop him at the end of the year. They didn't pick him in the team for the start of the year. They got Frawley to try and replace him, of all people. Frawley was finished. He is finished. I mean, he's an interesting character, Carl.
Yeah, well, hey, you don't have to convince an Essendon person. You're talking about a bloke who I was privy to because I was on the boundary, came off the ground one night in a Friday night game for Essendon in his last season and yelled out to anyone who could hear, which was a lot of people, this club is effed.
Yeah, well, I'm saying, that I'm not saying he's done that, but there are elements of, say, Carlisle that are not adored by the playing group.
All right, last question before we do the tips. Paul says, thoughts on Geelong's rucks, guys? Will Sav work better than Stanley long term?
Well, that's the thing. Their ruck situation at Geelong is as follows. Whoever's currently rucking is 4 or 5 weeks away from being replaced because no one's good enough to really hold down that position. And it seems that only when dropped do players, start. They look better. You look better as a ruckman at Geelong almost when you're not playing.
But that wasn't the case. Like Stanley, was it last year or the year before? Stanley had a really good season and a prolonged spell as a number one ruckman, and then they went cold on him at exactly the wrong time of the year. I think it was the season before 2019 when they lost that qualifying final to Collingwood and dropped Stanley at the last minute.
Yeah, what they did was they played Blitzarves there because Blitzarves has had a good game during the year. Blitzarves can go 1 or 2 weeks in the ruck, but not the whole season.
It's interesting how it's been a bit of an Achilles heel for them for, several years, isn't it?
Yeah, well, look, they've tried Zach Smith, Josh Jenkins. These have not been cures.
Sorry, Peter Wright again. Chicken is the most popular meat in Peru. Pollo. He says it's pronounced puyu. That's funny. I always thought it was pollo because I remember learning Spanish in year 8, and one of the phrases I remember is arroz con pollo, which is rice and chicken.
It's pollo, you don't pronounce the double L. You've watched Breaking Bad. Chicken.
Well, my mum speaks fluent Spanish. We heard a lot of it in our house when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I told you, it was a different sort of upbringing. All right, let's do the tips. Okay, so it's weird and wacky and wonderful tip time.
Yep.
And I know how much the key for this segment is for us to drive down the viewer numbers as quickly as possible. It's like that scene out of Blackadder where the Prince Regent says to Blackadder, I've discovered this terrific new game. It's called Cards. And you see what you do is you sit around with all your friends and the object of the game is to try to give away your money as fast as you can. Apparently, I'm a natural at it. So we are trying to shed viewers. So let's see how quickly we can shed our remaining audience. So,
saying, all hail, we hail King George. We hail King George. No, they were saying we hate King George.
I love Blackadder.
King George. I mean, he's great, isn't he?
I'm going to have to do this again. My favourite slice of dialogue from Blackadder when same episode, he's lost all his money. They're trying to get him to marry into money so he can continue living a lavish lifestyle. And Blackadder convinces him to write a love letter to the daughter of this industrialist, Amy Hardwood. He said, okay, then, take this down. Tally-ho, my fine, saucy young trollop. Your luck's in. Trip along here with all your cash and some naughty night attire, and you'll be staring at my bedroom ceiling from now until Christmas, you lucky tart. Yours with the deepest respect, etc. Signed, George. P.S. Woof, woof. And then Blackadder says, it's very moving, sir. Would you mind if I change just one tiny aspect? Or which one? The words?
You know my favourite bit from that same series?
What?
Was when Lord Bottomley came by guaranteeing his vote, securing the long-term future for the Prince.
Oh, yes.
As long as I can draw breath, why, I'd never vote against a regent. From the Crown. And then he starts, Prince George starts. Pshaw, rubbish. Why, look at you. You're the very embodiment of a healthy English gentleman. Round of cheek and plump of fetlock. And he's, and Blackadder's standing with Lord Bottomley and goes, he's dead. What? He's dead. He died during that. But I love that expression, plump of fetlock.
All right. So what is our device for tipping this week, Finey?
It bothers me not that there are smarter bits of orange peel floating down the Thames than you. Okay. An obscure ruckman from the team that we're tipping throughout their history.
Okay. All right. So everyone across that. The team, you will know our tip by our naming of an obscure ruckman from the team we're tipping. Hopefully that you will have some insight into who we're tipping despite their obscurity. Okay. So first game in fact, this is now changed. That's right, they changed the game time. So first game on the schedule tomorrow at Metricon Stadium. It is Gold Coast versus St Kilda at 1:45 p.m. And I think we're going for different tips here. Finey, who are you tipping?
I am tipping Keegan Brooksby.
I thought you tipped St Kilda.
No, I did not.
Okay, all right. Jesus. I am going for... what was that guy Nichols' first name?
Tom.
I was going to Tom Nichols. I was going to say Trent Nichols. Tom Nichols. So, i.e., we're both going for Gold Coast. Next, at 2:10 p.m. at Giants Stadium, surprisingly hosting the Giants. GWS taking on Essendon. Finey, your tip.
Okay, I am tipping Josh Fraser. No, yeah, I can tip Josh Fraser, can't
I? He did play for him, didn't he? I mean, did he actually get out in the park? All right, well, in that case, I am tipping Dean Brogan.
Oh, that's good.
All right, so again, for those playing at home,
Josh Gold Coast.
Yeah, come on, Finey, you're better than that.
All right, not really. Okay, I am tipping... okay, right for that.
Gary Butterfield's just said, how about Percy when he invented green? Do you remember that? He's trying to make gold and he comes up with green. He's, behold, the finest green.
All right, I'm tipping Israel Folau. He must have gone up. Ruck.
The only thing he got up on was a pulpit. We've got some good. That's the guy I was thinking of. All right, so here's some more nominations. Jonathan Giles.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Dawson Simpson.
Yes, very good.
And our good friend Johnson Von Trapp, i.e. Andrew Burt in New York, says Simon Madden. Yeah, he was obscure. All right, I'll give you an obscure Essendon ruckman.
Are you tipping Essendon?
No, I'll give him my tip. It was Dean Brogan.
I've got a great ruckman. Played one game for St Kilda, but he came from Essendon.
I know who it is. Enrico Misso.
Yeah, I hit him all around the park in school cricket one day.
I'll try to give an obscure Essendon ruckman. No, don't worry. I'll come back to it.
I know.
Ilya Grigic.
How about Bellchambers?
yeah, didn't get on the park much. All right, so we're both tipping GWS. All right, next. It's a battle for the wooden spoon between North Melbourne and Collingwood. And there's that bloody AFL app continuing to go back to the top. How bad is the AFL app? Seriously.
Oh, yes, terrible.
All right. Marvel Stadium, 4:35 Saturday afternoon. North Melbourne versus Collingwood. Your tip, please, Finey.
Okay, I'm tipping
I've got one before you chip in.
Schaefer.
Who?
Schaefer. Didn't he play for Collingwood and Richmond, the Pen?
Oh, Mark Schaefer?
No, something Schaefer.
Actually, the first one I came up with won a Copeland Trophy, so it's a bit unfair. Where's
Bellows.
Bellows?
Yeah, that's a bit harsh.
Okay, I'll go with, in that case, I'll go with the guy they played. What was his name? Oh, Steve McKee.
Yeah, that's a good one. Played for Collingwood and Richmond as well.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go for a guy who I know really well, a great bloke, Chris Bryan.
Oh, okay. Yep. Yeah, fair call.
Yep.
Who was rucking for Collingwood in like when they won the Wooden Spoon in 76 or 99?
Those years.
All right, Barefoot Punter says, were you walking down Lennox Street today around lunchtime, RoCo? Yes, I was, Barefoot Punter.
Oh.
I went to I went to a high-powered business meeting at the cafe in Cremorne Street, and I'm just trying to remember what it was called. Sloane Ranger, I think it's called. And can I just tell you, Barefoot Punter, if Richmond isn't the hardest place in Melbourne to get a bloody car park, I will eat my hat. I ended up parking at the London Tavern and walking for about 15 minutes to that bloody cafe. It's impossible around there.
How about Jeff Austin rucking for Collingwood?
Jeff who?
Austin.
Oh, Jeff Austin, yeah. Had a pretty good career for Preston in the VFA.
Well,
anyway, that was me, Barefoot Punter, so should have come up and said good day. Romano Negri, he played for Adelaide.
Adelaide, yeah, that's right.
Whoops, I think someone's got ahead of the game there. So anyway, the upshot of that is we're both tipping Collingwood.
Yep.
Next game, 7:25 p.m. at the MCG. It is Melbourne up against Sydney. Who do you like there, Finey?
I'm going to go for... I was going to go for Vic Annanson, but that's too easy. I'm going to go for...
Go for someone like, when they first moved up to Sydney.
Oh, okay. Oh, so a Sydney play. I'm going to go for Ricky Mott.
Ricky Mott, the man who missed a shot after the siren to beat Essendon in, I think, 2002.
Yep.
All right, I am going for, I cannot remember his name. I just remember what he looked like. The ruckman with the curly mop of hair, not all that many years ago. Damn it. No, hang on. I can go more obscure than that.
Remember Gareth John?
Yeah, he played for Sydney.
Yeah. Oh, you're going for Melbourne, are you?
Well, yeah, but thanks for giving away the point of the whole quiz. So I don't need to name anyone now. All right, I've got to think of an obscure Melbourne ruckman. No, I can't do it. Gary Baker, Peter Moore.
Oh, they've got some obscure ones.
Crackers Keenan. Well, I can't think of it. That's it. Jake Spencer. We've got nominations for Straubs O'Dwyer. Ryan says Jack Fitzpatrick. Good friend of the show, Jack Fitzpatrick. Max Walker. Robert Marshall says Max Walker. Good call.
Steve Turner.
Steve Turner. I played for Melbourne and Richmond.
And they came to St Kilda. It was horrible.
Okay. Anyway, so I'm tipping Melbourne and Finey, you're tipping Sydney. Next is the showdown. By the way, some really good podcast feedback about my rendition of the Johnnies. There's going to be a showdown.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I can't believe you didn't know that song. It's a great song, and it was a hit. It was a big hit in 1986.
Sure.
All right, so the showdown. Who are you tipping?
I'm going to tip I'll have to go for Barry Brooks.
Oh, Barry Brooks, who also played at St Kilda, did he not?
Sort of.
All right. Well, I'll tell you who I'm going for. I am going for. Hang on, I've done this the wrong way. I'm cheating.
Stop cheating.
I'm going for. Actually, I covered Port's first ever game.
Go for Barnaby French.
No, I'm going instead with. Oh, no, he was a good ruckman. And so was he. Damn. No, okay. Hang on, wait. What about when were Port at their worst? Sort of 2000, they had a shocking year, didn't they? Yeah, okay. No, he wasn't a ruckman. Can I say Bowen Lockwood?
No.
All right.
No.
Okay. All right. Let's move to when were they next crap? After the 2007 grand final thrashing, it all went to crap in about 2010, which means I should go for Jackson Trengove.
Yeah, he rucked a bit.
Kane Ackland. There you go. That's obscure enough. All right, I'm going for Kane Ackland. So we're both going for Port.
Yep.
And let's go to the next game. And it is Ian Downsbury, yeah, also played for West Coast. Here we go. This is the traditional Finey, your audio's collapsing at the end of the show.
It always happens around there.
Yeah, I know. You've got to get rid of that dial-up. All right, Sunday, Hawthorn taking on West Coast at the MCG at 1:10 p.m. Your tip, please, Finey.
Steve and Jackson.
Ah, yes, very good. Now, did he go from West Coast to Richmond or Richmond to West Coast?
Like that?
Nah, just got the tail end of that. What'd you say?
Yeah, one of those. He played for Richmond.
Okay. All right. I am tipping in that game. I am going to tip Phil Scott.
Oh, that's good. Big Phil Scott, yeah.
You know what's funny about that? I saw footage of Phil Scott playing a game last night because for some stupid reason I sat there and watched highlights of the 1990 preliminary final between Essendon and West Coast. And he was in fact playing at fullback. So we're both going for West Coast in that one. Second last game on the card is Western Bulldogs against Carlton, 3:20 p.m. at the MCG. Your tip, please, Finey.
Yeah, this is sort of a tricky one. I'm going for De Conning.
Terry De Conning.
Yeah, T. De Conning.
Yes, played in some of those fairly unglamorous Footscray sides of the late 70s, early 80s.
Or I could go for Ian Salmon.
You could, but will you?
No, I won't.
Okay.
I'll end up going for. I'll end up going for Bill Berry.
That's who I was going to get.
That's
who I was going to pick.
Bill Berry.
Yeah.
Ah, bad luck.
He also played for Essendon and Collingwood.
Collingwood. Oh, okay.
I think. All right, now I've got to find someone else. Okay, when were the doggies? Crap. How about I go for? Geez, I did well in the hit-outs this day. Leading hit-out winner had 8. Yeah, I'm going to go for. Can I go for Peter Street?
If you want.
All right, I will, because I'm getting sick of this, and I think we should wrap it up. Last game of round 8 is Brisbane up against Fremantle. That is now at the Gabba, of course, 4:40 p.m. Your tip, please.
Can I use Fitzroy players?
No.
Well,
got to have played for Brisbane.
Dean Farnham. All right, I'm going for A big, awkward Brisbane ruckman. Let me think. I mean, I'm not going Dylan McLaren because I used him last week for something. I think I'll go for, that guy, was his name Cameron Wood?
Yeah.
Collingwood and Brisbane?
He didn't play for. Did he play for Brisbane? I thought he just played for Collingwood and Carlton.
No, he started, I'm sure he played for Brisbane, and he ended up driving the fan van for Triple M or something.
Oh, that's right, he did too. I thought you were going to say Cameron O'Brien, actually, who also played for Brisbane and went on to a career in stick movies in Hollywood. He did. He did. Well, I keep calling up Brisbane Bears sides, and it appears like Alex Sashenko did their ruck work for about 10 years.
And Mark Micken.
Yeah, I know. Well, I need to find another Brisbane ruckman, so bear with me. Because that started... Oh, Neil Hine. Yeah, good call. But that's yours, not mine. I've got to come up with someone. So I'm going to go for... How's this going? I've just called up this game between St Kilda and the Brisbane Bears in about 92. Do you know how many hit-outs Brisbane won for the entire game?
6.
5.
Well, I might have been at that game. Was that the game where Peter Budge kicked a few goals?
Well, Plugger kicked 12.
Yeah. Was Peter Budge?
Peter Budge didn't play.
Oh, I went to a game. So we were like 70 points up, and towards the end of the game, there was no one in the hill behind the goals. And I can't remember who the Brisbane Bears backman was, but I went and retrieved the ball. And twice I pretended to give it to him and then pulled it back.
Jeez, you're a prick.
Yeah, and on the second time, he said to me, "Do that again, and I'm going to jump the fence." That would have been great in an AFL game.
All right, I've got to come up with someone here. This is ridiculous. All right.
Come on.
What about... no. Who is it? Oh, Ben Hudson. He's not too obscure, Dane. Stop muddying the waters. All right, no, if I don't get this one, I'm giving up. Yeah, Neil Hine. He'll do. Neil Hine, H-E-I-N, South Australian guy who played in Brisbane Bears. Did he play in their first game? That's the last thing I'll look up. I think he did.
I don't think.
All right. Well, let's have a look.
First captain. Didn't Micken... Leslie played in their first game. Micken was their first captain, wasn't he?
Micken was the captain.
Yeah.
Neil Hine did play in their first game, as a matter of fact.
I know Brenton Phillips played well.
Yeah, well, they won. They won their first 2 games. They beat North Melbourne at the MCG. Can't remember who their second win was. But here's their side for their first game. Peter Banfield, Matthew Campbell, Dale Dixon, Jim Edmund, John Fidge, Brad Hardy, Bernie Harris, Neil Hine, Michael McCarthy, Mark Micken, Cameron Hollywood O'Brien, soon to star in David O'Keefe, Brenton Phillips, Jeff Rains, Steve Richardson, Mike Richardson, Mark Roberts, Phil Walsh, Chris Waterson, Mark Williams. It's actually not that bad a side.
They would go on to have much worse teams than that.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking, not a bad side at all. All right, we're done. Just see if there's any last second questions. And you know what? The audience has shrunk by only 13. So can all you people still watching this get a life, please? No, thanks for staying on. It's good fun. We've got a few more suggestions too, quickly. Dion Scott. Oh, that's a good one from Darren. Stephen Reynolds, yes, of course. He ended up at Brisbane. That's from Simon Morris. Oh, he did some ruck work. Leroy Jones says Galaxy Coleman. Trent Noble.
Yeah.
Says Peter Phoebe.
So Coleman the first player to play 50 games for 3 different clubs?
I don't know. Who were they? Footscray, Sydney and
Roy.
Fitzroy.
Yeah. And who was the next player to do it?
Oh, Dale Kickett?
No.
No, I don't know. Who?
Who was the Collingwood premiership player, that useful swing man? Who was their swing man that they loved?
Collingwood premiership player. Don't tell me. 50 games at 3 clubs.
Yeah, I think only a couple of done it. Or at that point, he was the second player to do it. He played for Collingwood.
Premiership player.
Was he? Or maybe not premiership player. He was a key.
Well, it's not like they've won a heap of premierships in the last 70 years.
He was a premiership player. Who was their second ruckman in their premiership? And he'd go forward. He could play forward, back, or ruck.
Well, their ruckmen in that premiership were Damien Monkhurst and James Manson.
No, in 2010.
Oh, I know you mean. Lee Brown.
Yeah, Lee Brown.
Yeah, okay. All right, that's an appropriate...
So who did he play for? North Melbourne, Collingwood, and...
I don't remember him playing for anyone else. Damon, are we still on?
Who's another player who played for 3 clubs? 50 games. Not Roberts, was it? No.
I don't know, but we're not going to talk about it on air. We're going to sign off and let everyone go to bed. Okay, that's done it, Finey. You tipped it over the edge. We're down to 40 now.
You're giving us rubbish information tonight. He played for 3 clubs. He played for Fremantle as well.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
He played 50 games for 3 clubs.
Keep talking, Finey. We're losing him. 40, 30, 20. All right. No, we're going to sign off there.
Lee Brown.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Good fun and good win tonight to the Cats. You can catch up with us again on the Sunday Round 8 review edition of the podcast. Should be up late-ish Sunday evening. And we'll do this all again next Friday night when What was that?
I'm not looking forward to next Friday night.
When St Kilda plays Geelong. Well, you never know. Surprise tonight. We might get another surprise then. Thanks for your company, everyone. We'll see you later.